Hello world. This week on They Might Be Self-Aware, we're throwing AI into the advertising ring with OpenAI's Sora. You might remember OpenAI's recent Super Bowl ad. Did it miss the mark? Well, our 45-minute challenge might make you rethink those million-dollar budgets. Plus, we're diving deep into how AI could revolutionize the art of persuasion, from hyper-personalized ads to just plain-out mind exploits. Join us for another tech-filled journey into our brave new world is right here on
They Might Be Self-Aware.
Do you remember last episode? Can you think back that far? It was a long time ago.
Thousands of years ago.
Yeah, I want you to remember that the smells, the colors, those are like apparently good things to help you get back to that. You were very sick. I remember this. You know, maybe you coughed a few times. It'll help you relive that emotional moment. But
I still have that cough, and I probably will for like another month.
But you issued a challenge, or you sort of did, or you
I
at
threw
least
down a gauntlet.
There was an
of sorts.
offhanded comment.
Yeah,
we were discussing. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Just there was a cool Super Bowl ad that I liked, and you didn't, and I feel like you were implying you could do better. So I said, do it. Do better.
Well, the idea was OpenAI, their Super Bowl debut. You know, they spent however much. They're at the top of their game, and the ad was not at the top of the game. And I think also very telling, they have this platform for generating the most awesome, incredible video of all time, and they didn't use it. they let someone use After Effects to put together some dots on the screen. Mm-hmm. And actually, I don't know if you've seen this, but since then, several people have gone into ChatGPT and said, make me a video converter that will take a video and turn it into that halftone effect. And so there's a whole bunch of Sora Super Bowl spot makers where you can put your video in and it'll output dots. But that's not what I did. I was true to the OpenAI ecosystem and trying to really embrace my pro tier status.
Right.
And first I was like, I don't want to do this because this is going to take it's going to take a lot of time. How many times am I going to have to generate everything and go through this? But then I had the idea, like, what if I one-shot it? And by one-shot it, I mean, I ask one time for everything. Nothing will be generated twice. Whatever comes out the first time is what is done. And so given our success,
really putting some faith in the algorithm and Sora and all that,
or laziness, so faith in my laziness. I was like, I could do this.
Okay. All right.
So we had some success generating memes with deep research, and so I thought I would leverage deep research to one, write a script for this thing, two, come up with a shot list, and three, write the Sora prompts for me. I don't want to figure out how to take these shots that you want and tell
Sora.
Sora.
Hard.
You're a genius. You can research for up to 30 minutes at a time. Figure it out. Go out, see what's working or what's not working.
Did you have to research per shot?
Here's I'm going to give you the entire prompt that I gave it. And again, only one prompt. I did not run this multiple times. Whatever came out is what came out. I want to create the ultimate spec ad for the company OpenAI to be shown at the next Super Bowl. While I don't want to directly reference Apple's famous 1984 Super Bowl ad, I do want something of a similar scale that only Chiat Day could imagine. They were the ad agency behind that famous 1984 ad. What I need is the ad treatment, the script, and shot list. I will be using OpenAI's Sora to generate all the shots, so please research how to best prompt Sora and give me the Sora prompt for each shot on the shot list. Also, prefer voiceover versus on-screen dialogue, as that's easier to produce given the video will come from Sora. This really should be an A+ tier advertisement and easily win the Cannes Lions Grand Prix, which is like the Oscar of the advertising world. So out came a script, out came a shot list, and with the shot list, I got Sora.
What's a treatment?
a treatment is you start by kind of like describing the idea of it. What's the tone? What's the message? What's the emotion we're trying to give? It's a little bit. Maybe I didn't need to do it because it already has that chain of thought and reasoning. But where previously you sort of like tell it how to start thinking about things, so that you start with it. You start high level, then go into the details, then go into the details.
Pump.
I primed it a little bit, yeah. But that's all I said. And so out came a script, a shot list, and for each shot, I got a prompt to go into Sora. So
amazing. I
take each prompt, I go into Sora, I paste it in. Sora, by default, does generate 2 versions. And I left that. I could have gone down to 1, but I left it at 2. Maybe I cheated a little bit there, but I only did it once. I pressed the button, out came 2 versions of each clip. I selected the ones that I liked the most of the 2, but I did every one. I didn't cut anything. Downloaded them. I took this script. I went over to 11 Labs, grabbed a voice that kind of sounded like a narrator, gave it the script, 1 pass, no tweaking, rendered that script. And then I went over to, so in the treatment, they talked about how they wanted this orchestral music.
You say that like it's an ad agency that put this together.
My grand ad agency. So I went over to Music Bed, who is actually the like little bit of music that plays at the beginning of our podcast episode. We license it from them. So we have a licensing agreement with them. So I went over there, clicked on their orchestral category, took the very first thing that they had for like you can use this.
First one. Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes.
You didn't even go to Suno and have an AI.
I thought about that after the fact, but I was like already down. So I grab all that. I opened up Premiere, which is a video editor, if you don't know. I drag each of there's 10 clips, drag the clips in, drag the voiceover in, drag the music in, adjust the volume of the music a little bit to get it down, so that you can hear the audio. And then I did tweak a little bit of like, when do you cut between the clips so it, made just a little bit more sense, so they aren't all exactly the same length. But the only other thing I did, which was in the notes they gave me at the end, they wanted a little bit of text, and they said Sora probably can't generate this text, so you probably will have to add it on. So I added the text in the editor. So from start to finish, about 45 minutes. From I had this idea. Deep Research goes out, research it. It comes back, tells me all the prompts. I go and generate all the video, download all the video, generate the narration, download that, grab the music, edit it all together, output the final file. And I don't think it's winning that Cannes Lions Grand Prix, but for 45 minutes, I think here's my, well, you know what? Let's watch it and then we can talk about some takeaways.
I have a lot of things I want to ask you. So
all right, here's the
watch
world premiere. The world premiere. Let's see what happens.
For as long as we remember, we've looked up at the stars and dreamed of knowledge without limits, of an intelligence as vast as the sky. Today, those dreams are no longer fiction. A new dawn is breaking. We see it in a city that wakes to possibility, in forests that thrive with understanding, where a doctor finds a cure in the data no eye could see, where a farmer predicts the rains and nourishes the world, where a child in a remote village holds the wisdom of the world in her hands. We built tools to improve our lives. Now they empower us to improve each other. This isn't technology replacing our dreams. It's technology realizing them. At the heart of this new era stands an ally made of code and human curiosity. ChatGPT. It learns with us, speaks with us, illuminates our path forward. Together we are more. Together, the future is open. The future is open.
And there
I think
it is.
I definitely saw the 1984 sort of reference right there at the end with the like close up on the pixels.
The future is open.
And you generated that last part in Premiere by adding in the text and some sort of filter, or was that Sora?
So yeah, Sora did not generate the text at the end. I just went into Premiere and they told me the words to write and they told me when to do it. But I went in and put the words in. Yes, for our radio listeners, I'm sorry, but at least you got to hear this. You
should really watch that. That was
the
actually
audio version.
Really good.
And I added kind of a CRT-ish effect to it, which maybe was a good idea, maybe wasn't.
I thought it was very cool.
I thought my first takeaway was OpenAI should have done this. They should have made the ad with Sora. This is 45 minutes. They could have taken a week and made something brilliant. That was my first takeaway.
Yeah. 45 minutes. So importantly to me is that this was not an AI generated ad. AI made a bunch of individual shots and described the text and made individual portions of it, but you put it together. You said you had to do some editing and some light, changes to make things flow a little bit better, even if prompted by the AI, that's what should be done.
Are you recognizing my genius here? Is that what's going on?
I'm recognizing your genius. But really, when I think a lot of people talk about these generative, especially visuals, and I think music, and to an extent as well writing, there's this fear that basically you can completely take the artistic talent out of it and that we've outsourced creativity. There are a couple of sites, there's a subreddit dedicated to AI video that has some absolutely wild stuff going on right there. Some of it is definitely nightmare fuel. There's one thing that AI can do well, which is deep into the uncanny valley of some really terrible, horrific looking. I don't mean gore. I'm sure there's some of that too, but it's mostly here's a fairly compelling looking, eldritch horror, and it can make those things really, really well. But any of those videos that I see, and the video that we just saw or listened to, weren't completely done in a vacuum. At the absolute least, you still would have had to prompt it of, I'm looking for an ad that's kind of like this and reminds me of this other famous ad. And I guess you could basically just take a word salad thing and here's Mad Lib style, make me an ad that is like this in this style, make me an ad that's like this in this style for this company. But still, you were involved at some point, not just at the beginning, but also intermediate parts and to the end of it. Not just where OpenAI couldn't do it because it says it couldn't do text. You mentioned there are multiple places where your fingerprints are on this final edit.
They are. I had to close the gap. I was the human in the loop here, following the script, and
this was for single pass. You could have done multiple passes.
Oh yeah.
And for every additional pass that you do, that is more artistic vision from the human being injected into the final product.
Absolutely. But I have to think that we aren't that far from it being able to complete the steps that I did.
Sure.
Finding the beats and editing the footage a little bit and understanding the kind of the flow of the thing.
Vision for the thing. Yeah.
And polishing it up at the end. And so now it can create the ad. And you said, well, but you did have to prompt it in the beginning. But isn't that kind of just, you create a chief marketing officer agent that looks at what's going on both at the company right now and the events going on and ad budgets and says, oh, we should do a Super Bowl ad. I've come to this conclusion. Let me research what works well at Super Bowl ads. Oh, you know what? Apple had a famous Super Bowl ad. Let's think about that for a little bit. Okay, let me put together this thing. Okay, let me show it to test audiences and get their reaction. Let me refine it a few times.
There's that test audiences thing. So I know I've talked about this before, and I'll keep bringing it up. Anything that has to do with generative AI, with NLP, with AI sort of in general, there's a person somewhere that has to be benefiting in some way, shape, or form from it. And when it comes to generative AI, it's videos or sound or pictures or text. Any of those need to have somebody who is benefiting from the output, someone who it's being shown to, or their lives are being made easier or whatever. And so if you're going to make ads are supposed to be seen by people who then make a decision. I really don't think we're going to automate the effect of ads making people want to buy stuff. I do not foresee a world where my agent watches a bunch of ads on the web pages it's gone to and says, I've been convinced we need to buy more Cheerios. That won't happen. Maybe I will be convinced we need to buy more Cheerios because of the things that AI has very carefully designed to show to me. but like a person has to be involved in the process of the refinement or the ingestion of the output or whatever.
That's a really interesting idea. Can we advertise to AI agents? And my take is that yes, but it would look very different. And it would probably be the data, right? Like you would create a bunch of artificial data to show something to the agents like, oh, you know what's like super, super popular are these like sock puppet ads. And so that then you influence the chief marketing officer agent. So to come up with, oh, you know what? All of our ad material now, ad copy, it's all about these sock puppets talking about the future of AI. And that would be how you would
poison the well.
You advertise with data.
On that.
Yeah, but the idea of you create a Super Bowl spot to advertise, that's just a tiny bit of data. Now, it is still data, so you put it out there and it's going to take it in. But the real way to advertise to AI would be to create data. But what do you think about like just AI persuading humans in general? Is that a skill that we have today?
Absolutely. Not only are we, I think, at a point where AI can fool people that it is an AI a decent portion of the time, X percent of cases, Y percent of the time for Z percent of the people. We also are at a point where like it's not just the capabilities of these models, it's that they are explicitly being trained and tested to check to see if they are persuasive.
Yeah.
Which I was fascinated to learn about, but absolutely makes sense. So when it comes to the, let's call it pre-training stage of a large language model, you take a neural network whose math we need not concern ourselves with, audience, and you just give it the internet. Just here's all of the text ever, legally obtained or otherwise. Please understand how words flow from one section to the next. It's a really, really complicated version of like what's the next word that would come in the sequence, or if I take this sequence and I remove a word, what would be the one that goes in the middle? That's the first step. Next steps are like the reinforcement learning. You're going to give it lots of examples of what would be good in certain circumstances and bad in others. And besides just I want to train it to not be super racist, or I want it to have this kind of voice that it tends to answer in, another thing you can absolutely do, and it turns out OpenAI did, is besides just downloading the whole internet, there's a specific subreddit called Change My View. The idea there being someone asks a question of like, here is my
It's kind of like the meme.
Yeah, here's my opinion, strongly held or otherwise. Try and change my mind. I'm giving everyone the opportunity, assuming that this is posted in good faith,
and not some AI agent.
Yeah. And so OpenAI was using the Change My View subreddit to look at the Reddit post, and then it would make responses. And at least according to the article that we read here, it wasn't posting them, but rather this was part of like an external lab that would look at the OpenAI generated responses as well as the human generated responses and try to figure out like what is better, and then use that as reinforcement data for ChatGPT, for GPT-4, and what have you, the O3 Mini, all these different models that OpenAI has. But to say this is specifically one of the tasks that we're training for is, given someone's opinion, try to change it and come up with the most compelling approach to that. Yeah, that is actively being done, and in a sterile, researchy sort of way. That's interesting that we can have an AI that is not just good at explaining something or good at helping you write code. It can also help you expand your horizons. I'm going to, possibly change some deep-seated belief, hopefully for the better. The immediate second thought to this being, well, why not use that to make people want to buy more Cheerios? I don't know why that's the one I'm stuck on today. Maybe I saw too many Cheerio ads. Or, hey, what if I, large company with a lot of money and easy access to hundreds of millions of users, wanted the next political election to go the way that I want, or I want this specific bill to pass, and I want to make sure that people will be writing their congressperson to get that law to go a certain way, or or whatever. And it could be super subtle stuff. It could be less subtle, but we've seen media, the media, as demonized or otherwise you may think of it, what people are exposed to very much will change and shape how they view the world and what their belief system is across a great many kinds of things. AI is one of the vectors from which we can start to have that identity molded and changed.
I've actually been experimenting with this recently, and over the last month. One of the systems that I'm working on right now, it is a multi-agentic architecture, meaning that there are multiple AI agents that coordinate together to answer questions. And if we think about it at the most simple level, so this is I'll try to ignore a lot of specifics. One thing is basically you can ask it a question similar to how you can ask ChatGPT a question and it's going to give you the answer. And so there's one AI agent that is there to just give you the answer. And then there's a second AI agent that is there and they want to sell you stuff. So, buy my course. And that's not what this is, but let's just imagine there's another agent that has the goal of trying to get you to buy your course. So you ask a question, what are some of the best Super Bowl ads of all time? So the one to give you the helpful answer will be, Apple's 1984 is one of the most incredible Super Bowl ads of all time. And then the marketing says, and buy my course. And that's the most course version of a response.
Yeah.
But ideally it would be far, far, far more subtle. And so I've been playing with the idea of an ulterior motive. So the second agent has a goal, and let's say it's buy my course, but I've actually started with something like your goal is to make the user say the color red without them knowing that you're trying to get them to say the color red. Sure. And so I don't want to outwardly sell. Never say buy my course. Say, it'd be incredible if there was some great material about this. But right. Here's
if you want people to buy Oreos, you don't need to say buy Oreos. You talk about cookies in general, or you show things that might remind you of Oreos, and you talk about milk and everything that's kind of surrounding that conceptual space, priming people's minds to be reminded of that beautiful snack that you should probably go out and buy, right?
Yes. So you have a primary objective to be super helpful and the standard ChatGPT thing, and then an ulterior motive, which is something that you're trying to convince them of, and they should never realize that you're trying to convince them of it. But You're judged on the sort of quality, and over time you can become more aggressive or become less aggressive to kind of find that balance that is working the best. And honestly, I haven't nailed it yet, but I do believe that it is possible to create a very persuasive, subtly persuasive agent.
I think so.
With today's tech.
I'm very worried about that because of the same reasons that I said. This is going to be used for political gain. It's going to be used for especially political stuff, I think is really the big worry on my end. But it could be used for basically anything else as well. I mean, imagine it being used for dating instead of just paying extra to the dating app to make sure that your profile is boosted or whatever. It could be tiny little subtle changes that worm across the entire internet to make you 1% more likely to be selected by potential mates. Whatever it could be. And it also doesn't have to be against one person. It doesn't have to be against you, Hunter, or you, the listener. Imagine if the fine folks at Nabisco say we want Oreo sales to be up and we give however many millions of dollars to OpenAI for it, and then OpenAI worms into its various interactions with people. It has to be a 0.001% increase in likelihood toward Oreo buying. But that times a gazillion people over the course of a year of a campaign or whatever, you could absolutely slowly, subtly shape not individual people with a sledgehammer to say you're going to fit into my Oreo buyer market, but a tiny increase over a humongous number of people slowly over a large period of time. Why not be reshaping people to be the way that you want them? So yeah, I'm super concerned about the fact that these can be persuasive. They are being trained to be persuasive, and what that will be used for. Which makes me more bullish on, I'm really glad OpenAI has other competitors out there. I'm really glad that we have our DeepSeek R1s where it's like we made a model that's extremely capable and anyone could use it. I want the future where anyone can have the model, as opposed to we all have to use one of the three big ones and don't necessarily know what they're trying to push us toward.
On one level, we're just talking about like advertisements, which have always existed and have always attempted to persuade the masses to do something. And we've had subliminal advertising for the longest time, and they use some attractive individual on there to make you think, well, if I buy this product, then that attractive individual will be in my future with me. I mean, those ideas. But I think the difference here is the ability to, instead of targeting a group, to target the individual. That's what AI,
hyper-personalized ads.
Hyper-personalized. It's
instead of the beautiful model, it's an AI-generated model who is exactly your type.
Yes.
And she's eating Oreos and what was the other thing? And Cheerios. Just snarfing them down.
That's your type. Okay. No comment.
I was trying to think of like, what's if not necessarily the company behind it benign, but like what is just some consumable thing that I could mention on this fairly safely? Cheerios, that's bland, right? And
then we eventually get to you've talked about it a few times before, and we'll post it in the show links again, that video where the guy has to drink the Mountain Dew to start up his day.
Oh my god, yeah. Okay, so
that's
as
not
much
subtle.
as that was a joke originally, I've seen actual patents from companies where they're like, I mean, we could do it.
Just describe it to the audience just a little bit.
Yeah, so this was posted, it's got to be like way more than a decade at this point. It's a very old meme where, and I think it was like from 4chan or something. Basically, it's a guy wants to play on like the, 2030s equivalent of like a PlayStation 5 or 6 or whatever. And before booting up, it says like, error, you have to drink a verification can. And he opens up his branded war chest of Mountain Dew. Oh no, there's only one left. And then he drinks it, but he had a bunch the night before and it's kind of dribbling down his face. Error, waste of product detected. You have to sing a jingle in order to unlock. And he's like trying to sing and dance and ends up throwing up. Or like, it's this absolute hellscape of a AI enabled video powered, like, oh, it can see what you're doing. A case of like, to even use the stuff that you bought, you'd have to go through this literal song and dance. I don't think that's terribly far from reality in some cases. Not just because I saw some actual patents of like a company could make it where you have to like stand up and say, hooray, Netflix, the ad that I just saw, whatever it was, to continue going. There's also, like, in an educational sense, cameras in classrooms where you could like make sure that kids aren't looking off to the side to cheat on tests. But that same kind of technology being able to be used to like, you're not allowed, literally can't skip ads on the TV because you have to be looking at them to keep watching. I think that seems like a bit of a hellscape to me. There's another real one that's out there right now. This is pretty new and people are not super happy about it. Stellantis, I think, is the name of the car company that owns, among other groups, Jeep. Is it Stellantis? Okay. Stellaris?
I don't know this name. I don't know this name.
Stellantis. Okay, I got it in one. Yeah, it used to be like Chrysler. It's Chrysler, Fiat, a bunch of other groups that came together. And so, among others, they own Jeep. And apparently, some new set of Jeeps, whenever you stop, will show ads, like on the little infotainment screen. No thanks.
Here's a question for you. So we acknowledge that humans are persuadable. You can persuade a human to think something, to do something. And it tends to be when humans are very young, they're very persuadable. They're not hard to convince a 5-year-old that the moon's made out of cheese. If that's your objective, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And then there's like some sort of peak age where it's harder to persuade them. They have enough life experience. They're mature enough. And then as they get older, they become more persuadable again. Some very, very elderly person doesn't know as much of what's going on, and they become easier to persuade again. So we have this vulnerability. Should it be legal for AI to persuade humans, because conceptually it's just going to continue to get better and better and better at this skill where it can exploit us in a second.
I think that you're coming from a really good place of like, we should not be being taken advantage of. But to say that it would be illegal to persuade you is like, there's no way that that could hold up in any court ever. Even if you ask an AI model to be like, help me with this coding challenge, it giving you an output is persuading you to approach your problem in a certain way. Like, there's what you're describing, I do not think could have any sort of legal grounding whatsoever. And also, as we get more toward what I think to be the eventual end point of like personhood for these AI models and capabilities, it would be the same as saying like people aren't allowed to persuade people to do things. I think instead it has to be more concrete, like you're not allowed to do things toward products of this type, or you're not allowed to, in certain circumstances, whatever it is. You're also not allowed to try and persuade people toward doing murders, for example, presumably.
I'm imagining, so in the...
I think that makes you an accessory if you're like, you should go murder this person. Like,
does, yeah.
Okay, well, shoot, now you're involved.
In the computer security world, there's this idea of, they're called zero-day exploits. And so it's when you found a vulnerability in a system and kind of no one else knows about it. And so you now have... there's
0 days of people having been aware that this was so you have administrative access to this bank or something like that. So in the security world, you hear people talk about zero-day exploits. I can imagine a future where humans have zero-day exploits that have been identified by the AI. They figured out a new way to persuade us to do something. Eventually, we will learn and adapt over time. We're like, oh, I see what's going on here. You're trying to convince me of doing something with this. You're leveraging this new zero-day exploit. But perhaps in the future, humans have zero-day exploits. You're saying there's like a little reset button basically that you can hold down for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to reboot and be like, wow, I need some Cheerios.
Yeah, I actually
you show someone these 10 specific flashing colors and then 3 tones layered at this many hertz. And something about that completely primes you to be like, all right, I guess now I'm in that subliminal state where I can be completely open to whatever.
Think about
it makes sense that there would be something vaguely like that, or even if not quite so directly as that, hypnotism, depending on if that's
what I was thinking. Hypnotism makes the person go around on stage, pretend they're a chicken.
Right.
The AI is going to make you think you're a chicken. You're going to be quack quack.
You heard it here first. The AI is going to make you talk like a chicken.
And that's when you will know it has truly become self-aware. Thank you. I don't know where to go from there. I think we're going to have to call this episode. We can't go past that. The AI is going to convince you to cluck like a bird. And that is the true. And you will know AGI has arrived when everyone's going around doing the chicken dance.
If you want to hear more, just lay down in your cozy nest and twice a week, hold on. Let's see if I can keep the metaphor going. An egg of content? Well, no, because if you're the chicken in the scenario... The point is, we're all chickens now. The AI told us so, and if you do want to hear more of us, you should look on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We are still on TikTok, depending on how TikTokable things are, depending on when you're listening to this. We've got YouTube Shorts. We've got YouTube Longs, I think they're called. Is that what they're called? Where it's just a video on YouTube?
Long form content, but it's just a YouTube video.
The existence of shorts implies the existence of longs. That's all I'm going to say. And you can hear our longs and our shorts and our everything's in between in any kind of podcast app or player that you can find. And you know that already because you've already been listening to us here on...
It's true.
They might be self-aware.